I want to share from the Word this morning, and it'll be my last word to you. I want us to think back to the first Sunday in January of this year when we sort of set out a theme for the year of, see, I am doing a new thing, things that you've not seen before. And who knew how much new would be in 2020? Who of us could possibly have guessed at the number of changes and the amount and the rapidity with which the change came to us in 2020. We began the year with our eyes on these verses from Isaiah 43. The Lord said through Isaiah, "Forget the former things, do not dwell on the past. Look, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Don't you see it? I am making a way in the wilderness and streams in the desert." The big idea on that first Sunday in January for 2020 was that God is doing new and exciting things we never experienced and things we never expected. And the things he wants us to see and experience are going to be dramatically new. But we have to open our eyes and our hearts in order to see them. This word calls out to us that says God is at work in moments and chapters of change. Will we see him at work, and will we see the new things that he's doing, or will we just lament the loss and the change, and will we just pine for the way it used to be? He calls to us, and we have said all year long, our future as a church will not be like our past has been. It will be a new future. It will be a new day, and God is still doing new things. Here were the takeaways on January 5, letting go of what's gone, seeing what God is doing now, and being amazed at what's new. I don't know how well we've done at the first two, but we certainly have been amazed by what's happened in our world and in our church. So I did some checking and went back to my spreadsheet and found that this is our 17th live stream service out of 30 Sundays in 2020. None of us had that in mind. None of us could imagine preaching and leading worship to an empty room and looking into a camera, but here we are. None of us could have anticipated all the changes that have come to our culture and to the world. None of us could have imagined the changes that some of us have been through, transitions with regards to our jobs, transitions with regard to housing, even some of us transitions with regard to our health and responding to the disease, to the virus. None of us could have predicted all of these changes, and yet, if we will see them, and I'm not saying that God caused the virus or had his hand on the scale and tipped things the way they are, but I'm saying that he is at work and doing new things if we will see them, if we will open our eyes and look and notice. So what's ahead for us? That's as much looking back as I'm going to do. What's ahead for us? So I've been saying all along, and you probably are tired of hearing it, but I thought it was my calling as your interim pastor to say the future will not be like the past. The next chapter at CR Naz will probably not be much like the previous chapter or the chapter before that or the chapter before that. The great thing about walking with God through the seasons of life is that he is always, constantly, and forever doing new things. He meets us where we are. He engages us in the moment where we are, and our lives are not lived like a scrapbook of where we've been and what it's been like, but what he is doing right now. So what's new for us going forward? What can we look forward to? What is about to happen? So obviously next week we get new lead pastors, and I want you to know that I am excited about Tara and Brett Smith coming as our next lead pastors. They were recommended by Pastor Doug Pierce, our district superintendent, and the board, and elected by the congregation, which is our polity and how we choose pastors in the Church of the Nazarene. And I am so excited about their calling to Crossroads. I believe that they are the people that God has in mind for us to lead the next chapter. But when I look at them and I look at their leadership, I reiterate what I've been saying for 8 months. The future will not look like the past. So let me tell you some of the things. I got just 4 this morning. What's new? First is a new generation of leaders are coming. So one of them is a Gen X and one of them is a millennial. by birth, but certainly by attitude and outlook. And I'll leave it to you to figure out which, Tara or Brett, is a Gen X and which is a millennial. You won't have to be around them very long before you figure that out and understand it. But this is the first time our church has been led by someone in these generations. It's been boomers and older so far. And I know that some of you don't take much stock in the generational stuff, but I do, because I have worked with people in different generations, and I tell you that we see the world differently, we experience the world differently, and we need each other, and there is blessings and benefits from all the generations, and I am absolutely excited about the passing of the torch from the boomer generation to the Gen X and millennial generation in our church. It is time. I'm not saying it's past time, but I'm saying that it is time. I was too young to remember live, but I have seen videos, and I certainly have read President JFK's inaugural speech on January 20, 1961. He was age 41 when he began as president in 1961. And in his inaugural address, he said, "Let the word go forth from this time and place to friend and foe alike that the torch has been passed to a new generation of Americans. Born in this century," he was the first president born in the 20th century, "tempered by war, disciplined by a hard and bitter peace, proud of our ancient heritage, and unwilling to witness or permit the slow undoing of those human rights to which this nation has always been committed and to which we are committed today at home and around the world." It was a great speech and a great presidency. And the passing of the torch, I know that some people held their breath and said, at age 41, is he ready to be president? And I know that some in our congregation are saying that at age 40, is a Gen X and a millennial co-lead pastor ready to lead Crossroads? And I want you to hear from an old guy who's been at this, well, I've been at pastoring longer than they've been alive. I want you to hear from me. They are ready. We are ready. The world is ready. It is passing the torch to a new generation of leaders. So I want to show you a verse that has been very meaningful to me in my 60s. And I hope it resonates with some of you. Actually, it's a couple of verses in Numbers chapter 8. I don't even have it up on the screen. You can look at it later if you want. The Lord said to Moses in Numbers 8:23, this applies to the Levites. These were the men who served in the tabernacle and later in the temple. Here's what God said to Moses. Men 25 years or old or more shall come to take part in the work at the tent of meeting, but at the age of 50, they must retire from the regular service and, I love this part, work no longer. They may assist their brothers in performing their duties at the tent of meeting, but they themselves must not do the work. This, then, is how you are to assign the responsibilities of the Levites. I've shared these verses with hundreds of people over the years, in the last 10 years or so, and most people have said to me, I had no idea that was in the scriptures. Of course not. It's in Numbers chapter 8. How often do you read from Numbers? But here's the word of the Lord, and I don't think this is a hard and fast rule for us like it was the law for them, but I think it's a principle that says we must pass the torch from one generation to the next. It is time to pass the generation. I love that it says old guys like me may continue to serve, but we serve with and under the direction of younger leaders. I'm ready for that. And I'm going to offend people on both ends of the political spectrum, and I speak as an old guy this morning, but it is dismaying to me that both candidates for president are in their middle 70s. Isn't it time for us to pass the torch to a younger generation of leaders? So I can't say anything about what's going to happen in November. My guess is a 70-plus-year-old president is going to be elected or reelected. But I can tell you that at Crossroads, we've got pastors born in 1979 and 80 that are going to lead us, and I am very excited about that. I think it is a fantastic thing. This passing of the torch happened from Moses to Joshua. Now listen, I know that some people said, Joshua? Are you kidding? He was that young guy that started out with Moses. How can we go without Moses? And Joshua was a fantastic leader. You look at me, and I've got the COVID beard and the COVID haircut, non-haircut going on, and maybe look like Moses. And you're thinking, how can we have a future without some old stability? We got young leaders who are ready for this challenge. You think of the passing of the torch from David to Solomon. David designed the temple, but God wouldn't let him build it, and his upstart son, Solomon, had to build it. How about the passing of the torch from the Apostle Paul, who planted churches all over the known world and then left pastors? And the first co-lead pastors, husband and wife, in a church were Priscilla and Aquila. And I'm sure some people said, are they ready for this? We've been taught by the Apostle Paul. They were ready, and the church was ready. So let me show you a video that Brett and Tara put together to introduce themselves to you just a little bit. It'll make you smile, maybe make you laugh. Let me show you that, and then we'll finish the word.
Yeah, I know. I'm tired too.
Yeah.
But hey.
It's been a lot.
It's been a lot. But hey, we're almost there. Why don't we just go ahead and move into our offices now?
Yeah, we're going to choose your office. All right, well, it's going to take me a couple hours to unload everything and see you this afternoon.
Okay.
All right, let's do it.
Bye. What are you doing?
What are you doing?
I'm coming to my office.
Oh, you're coming to my office.
Wait.
Oh, I see.
Okay.
How are we going to decide this?
Well, how do we always decide stuff?
Contest.
Yeah. Okay.
Let's go.
Alright, I want a clean race. No punching, no kicking, no biting. I'm looking at you, Mom. Alright, on your marks, get set, go!
Hey, you didn't say no tripping. You didn't say no tripping.
Sorry. Okay, fine. That's 2 out of 3.
All right.
Okay.
Guys. This again? You guys are co-pastors. Just share the office.
Oh.
Oh.
Hey, that's actually a pretty
Hey.
good idea.
I can do that.
Done.
Okay. Hey, good morning, Crossroads. So glad that we are finally moving to Chandler. We're so excited about getting to be your pastors. We'll be installed next week, and we really want you to tune in, don't we, Tara?
August 2nd, 10 a.m. at crnaz.com/live. Tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tell your family. This is going to be a great opportunity for us to connect, even if at this time it's still online. We can't wait to get to know you all.
See you soon.
Have you heard me say yet that I'm excited about our new lead pastors? I really am. So not only is it a new generation of leaders, but a new leadership paradigm for our church, a leadership paradigm that we've not had exactly. I love that Pastor Kendall left in place a lead team, and there were 4 of us who led together as a lead team, but the buck stopped with one lead pastor. Here we're moving into a new paradigm of co-lead pastors. Tara and Brett both are going to be our lead pastors, and they're going to do it together. This is a shared leadership. It is a multiplication of gifts. It is greater accountability. It is men and women learning and serving together. And I've had some experience not only with our lead team here, but I served on the staff of a church that was led by co-lead pastors in the West Valley, and I tell you that it is a leadership model that works. It is a fantastic model. It maximizes the strength of both leaders, and I'm very excited about that. Here's a new territory that we're also entering for our church. Is the first time a woman lead pastor. And I want you to hear me say, I am so excited about that for our church. If you think it's time for a new generation of leaders, and if you think it's time for a new paradigm of leadership, co-lead pastors, it is really time for a woman lead pastor to be a part of our shepherding experience here. This is theologically right. It is Nazarene right. In fact, I'm proud of this. The Nazarene Church has been ordaining and recognizing the call of God in the lives of men and women equally as far back as 1908. In fact, more than a dozen years before the 19th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution gave women the right to vote, the Nazarene Church was already ordaining women as leaders and pastors. And I'm proud of that. It's one of the reasons why Jennifer and I chose the Church of the Nazarene to be a part of. This is not only theologically right and right for the Nazarene world. I really believe our church is ready for this. I recognize that some people are saying, well, I've never been under a woman leader. I've never seen co-pastors working together. Take a deep breath, wait for it, and you'll adjust. They're good leaders. They are great people. They are called and filled with the Spirit of God. They're going to do a great job together. So we have a new generation of leaders. We have a new leadership paradigm. We also have a new environment. I could not have guessed how new the environment would be by the time our lead pastors got here. The world has changed in 2020. COVID-19 has made changes that I don't know if they're permanent or temporary. I don't know how significant the changes are. I'll tell you, Jennifer and I went out shopping the other day looking for hand soap, in a pump bottle. Went to 3 places and couldn't find hand soap. And we looked at each other and said, I wonder if this is the new normal. We're used to having 11 choices of hand soap and shelves that are stocked full. And at least for now, and I don't know about the future, things have changed. The world is different. And the church has changed. Who could have imagined or predicted that we'd do 17 weeks of live stream? I talked to somebody who recently said to me, I kind of love live stream. I dig staying home. I'm not skipping church. I'm involved. I take communion. I send in my offering. The only thing I miss is seeing other people and greeting each other. Listen, we all have adapted to this, and when the time comes for us to come back, we will come back. But know this for certain. I think when we come back, we will come back to a new future. I think things will be different. I don't know how they will be, but they will be. I don't know all the ways and all the things that might be different in the future going forward for our church or for our community or for the culture that we live in, but I think that things are going to change. And hear me, it'll be okay. In fact, it'll be more than okay. There are some of us who believe the church is way overdue for some change. There are some of us who love what we grew up in and have loved, for me, more than 67 years of being a part of a church and attending a church and even shepherding and pastoring churches. And I've loved every minute of it. But there are some of us who have a deep sense in our souls that it is time for significant change in the American church. And I think some of it is being thrust upon us. Some of it will come from the Spirit of God telling us how to adapt. But listen to this. I believe that the church is the most resilient, adaptable organization in the world. We were born under Roman domination as an off-split from Judaism, a cult, according to most kosher Jews in Israel. We have thrived under government persecution in China and in Russia and in Eastern Bloc countries. We have thrived under persecution and poverty and hardship in other places in the world. Here's the deal. In America, we've not known much hardship. The church in America, for more than 200 years, by world standards and by historical standards, has had it pretty easy, pretty delightful. We've been protected by a government who doesn't endorse, but also doesn't prohibit. I think the future for us is going to be different. I don't know all the ways that it will, but I know that the church is resilient. We have thrived through times of plenty, and we will thrive through times of less than plenty. Hear me out on this. The church thrives and grows and expands its influence during times of crisis and great need because it is not focused on preserving its own place in the world, but because it is focused on serving the needs of others, which become all the more urgent during times of change and upheaval. Listen, don't worry about the change and upheaval happening inside the church. Think of how this body can serve and love and be there for a culture in transition, for a culture in crisis. This is what we do best. We respond to tragedies. We respond to urgent needs. We rise up and make a difference when people are broken and hurt and down. This is what the church does, and it's what we do best. And I absolutely believe that our best days going forward are going to be because we have responded to the challenges facing not just us, but the culture around us. Well, the fourth thing that I think is new, not only a new generation of leaders and a new leadership paradigm, and not just a new environment that the church will thrive and grow in, but a new vision. Vision always comes from a person who has been in the presence of God and in the community of other people to know what the needs are. And I promise you, our new pastors are people who follow God. They are rich in the Spirit of Jesus. And in time, they will get to know us, and they will build relationships with us, and they will hear our heartbeat, and they will discover what we're good at and what we're gifted at, and what we've done in the past and what we might do in the future, and what this community around us really needs. And they will birth here a vision that may not be like the same vision that Mark Fuller had, or Dave Sharps had, or Kendall Franklin had. It may, in fact, it probably will be a whole new vision given from God, birthed in the context of a community of believers who they are connected with. This vision becomes a reality as they communicate their vision to us who participate, and they share responsibility for working out and bringing the vision to pass, when they fan the flame for all of us who are in the trenches and doing the work, and where they keep the vision in focus for all of us and not let us get distracted. Oh, there's a butterfly. But keep us focused on the main thing. Hear me out. It's time for new things, and we're at a place for a new chapter and a new day in the life of our church. Before we move forward, some of us still have some grieving to do, and here's the thing about grief work. Any of us who have ever grieved the loss of a loved one, or grieved the loss of a job, or grieved the breakup of a relationship, any of us who have ever wept tears of sadness at loss, understand that most of us don't get the luxury to just grieve. We got to go on with life while we grieve. Grieving is something we do simultaneously with doing the rest of life. And some of us still have some grieving to do. Losing 3 more pastors this morning is a cause for grief for some of us. And we're sad about that. We're hopeful for them, and we know God has his hand in their lives, but we will miss them, and we are sad about them not being a part of our family. Some of us are still grieving Pastor Kendall's leaving. It's only been 8 months. And where there is deep love, there is deep grief. And we will have to do that grieving work while we do the work of getting on with life and getting on with ministry. But I also want to urge us to accept the changes that are coming and some of the changes that have already been brought to us. All change is experienced as loss. Think about that. Unless you're the person instituting the change. For the rest of us, all change is experienced as loss, and that's why we grieve. Mark Twain famously said, "The only person who likes change is a wet baby." The rest of us typically resist it. Don't resist. God is doing a new thing. So let me give you 3 things to do with our new pastors. First of all, welcome them. It's going to be hard to do when we can't hug them and we can't see them face to face. They're going to be creative and they're going to figure out ways to connect and to get into our lives. Welcome our new pastors. Please, 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 when you welcome them as they are. Don't tell them how Kendall did things. Don't tell them how Dave Sharps did things. Don't tell them how Mark Fuller did things. We love those previous pastors, and they had a great ministry effectiveness here at Crossroads, but welcome these new people and tell them we're longing to see what you do out of your gifts and personality and out of this timing in this chapter in the history of our lives. Second, accept their leadership. Their leadership style is going to be unique. This co-lead pastor thing, a woman leading with a man, it's going to be a beautiful thing, but some of us are going to take some adjusting to it. Accept their leadership, even if you don't understand it. Even if you're turning to your spouse right now and say, well, that's a choice I wouldn't have made, but we did make it. As a congregation, we made it. Our board recommended, and Pastor Doug presented them to us, and we voted affirmatively and said, we've never been here before, but let's do this. because we believe God's in it. So accept their leadership. For now, their leadership is positional. They are the lead pastors of Crossroads. And in about 7 minutes, when I'm done and step down, they are the lead pastors. I'll hand over the keys to you guys in just a few minutes. But in time, they will build trust so that their leadership is not just positional, it will be relational. It will be because of what they do and how they do it and how they love and how they serve. I encourage you to accept their leadership. Third thing I want to say is to embrace the new things that God is doing. I've articulated a few that I think are kind of obvious, but the reality is there are probably 11 other things that God is going to do new in the next 12 months that none of us have any idea about. Embrace them. Here's why. If it's being done by God, in the name and power of God, in the Spirit of God, we're safe. We can trust him. Though we've never been this way before, we've been with him before, and he's been with us always. You can trust him. So for the last time this year, for me, I said we would read Isaiah 43, 18 and 19 every time we're together this year. I said as long as the year lasts or until we get our new lead pastor, whichever comes first. So for the last time, for me anyway, forget the former things, do not dwell on the past. Look, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Don't you see it? I'm making a way in the wilderness and streams in the desert. It is God who is doing all this through his Spirit, and he works through leaders and people like us. When we respond to him, when we see his hand at work, and when we follow his leadership. If you have communion, would you prepare to eat and drink communion? Let me lead us in that. So on the night Jesus instituted the Lord's Supper, what we call Holy Communion, he had taken something that Jewish people had been doing for thousands of years in a very set and prescribed way, and he turned it completely upside down. What had been mystery and unknown among Jewish people, what is this unleavened bread all about? And what is this wine for? It had had meanings about the past and about the Exodus and about getting out of Egypt with their lives. And it was all connected to that. And on this particular night, the Lord Jesus took those familiar words and this familiar bread and the familiar cup, and he infused in them a whole new meaning. I don't know if any of the disciples sitting around that table, and I tell you, all of us can't see the Last Supper any way except the way Da Vinci painted it. I don't think it actually was like that, but that's what we see in our minds. And I wonder if anyone leaned over and said, what's he doing? This is not the way the Passover Seder goes. This is not the way the liturgy reads, because Jesus took bread and said, this is my body. What? No, this is unleavened bread that showed our hardship in Egypt. No, he said, this is my body. That was brand new. Nobody had ever said that before. No one had ever even thought that before. And then he took the cup of redemption, the third out of 4 cups in the meal. And he said, this cup is a new covenant in my blood for the forgiveness of sins. They said, no, this was about painting the doorposts and the lintels in Egypt. This was about remembering the hardship and the sacrifice and the escape. And Jesus said, no, I'm doing something wholly new. This morning, I want to urge you to take this bread and drink from this cup and let it be the first time. Let it be brand new. You say, well, I've done this so many times, I can't count how many times I've taken communion. Me too. But don't just keep doing the same old thing over and over. This is a new thing that he's doing this moment in your life. This is his body and blood given for you and me now. And it's all new. It's for today. It's for this week. It's for this moment. It's for this chapter in our history. The Lord said, this is my body. This is my blood. As often as you eat this bread and drink this cup, remember me. Father, thank you for the body and blood of the Savior. We taste this bread and this cup, and it's brand new. It's like the first time. like we've never been here before. We've never experienced this before. It's like, oh my, God is alive and his Spirit is in me, body, soul, and spirit. And so we thank you and worship you. In Jesus' name.